This is the Bridget Drums sound test. This is an outdoor venue, and it has, hello, a flat roof about 8 foot high. So any sound that you're hearing back will have some reverberation. First up, Bridget Drums 14-inch by 5.5 inch. It is hardwood laminate and 6 Allen key tuners. Drum head is goat. It's also a very light drum. In fact, all of these drums are quite light. But here's the 14-inch. I'll be doing 3 tippers for this. Long rod dowel, semi-ball end, bamboo bundle tipper. Here's the bamboo. Flat, choke, finger point, open tone. Okay. So characteristics of this drum are that you get some of that modern player's feel, because it's a smaller drum. But you also get the non-taped overtones of a more, I guess you could call it, semi-traditional style. So basically it plays like a modern drum, but it has a bit of an old world sound to it. Long rod dowel. Semi-ball and hammer. That's the 14-inch. Next up, large 20-inch. And the large 20-inch is difficult to play because it's huge. This drum is better suited, generally speaking, for people who are more of a percussive nature playing. So if tone control in the 14-inch is what you're looking for, the really big 20-inch one, it's going to be harder for you to play. But if you're someone who likes the overtone playing, and keep in mind all these skins are brand new, so they're being played out of the box with minimal break-in. Eight tuners, Same Allen key system, same tuning ring. Open tone. Difficulty of playing the larger drum is that tone control is generally in the third. Playing below it's a bit of a stretch, because none of the tones are clear, so you got to work with the overtones. Send me ball in. Rod tipper. So again, you're playing with a ton of overtones rather than you got to cover a lot of skin area. There's a huge benefit to this drum though. The secret to me is in the tuning ring, and this is true with all the drums. The Walton's one that this is sort of in competition with has a very flat bearing edge by comparison. This one is broad and then quickly narrows off. There's something this thing can do very well. This thing is an amazing hand drum. So if you're someone who likes more of the wooden frame drum stuff, David Kucherman sort of feel, you may want to look into this. "16" 16 by 4. This is one of the two new colors. It's a sun-kissed orange, though I would actually call it autumn orange. Again, same general construction. Semi-ball and hammer. listen to this. First strike's going to be to the center, second to the upper third. Something that seems to be characteristic is the tom sound. It's cut very, very short. Instead, what you get is a cracking sound, which is more percussive than it is tonal. So these drums seem to be a little more designed towards a percussive ear rather than a tonal ear. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're someone who's played the very big, heavy, thick-skinned drums that are not taped, this is a good example of why they do that, to produce this sort of tone. But to draw your attention really quick, the bearing edge comes out and up and over at a shallower angle than most drums. It's not rounded like the Walton's drums, and it's not chamfered in a lot like a Hedvig drum or a McNeela drum. So this has sort of somewhere in between a very shallow chamfer. Long rod. Someone who likes Ronuno Snooty and that sort of sound, long rod dowel tipper and one of these drums. Very much sounds like him. The 16-inch seems to be the sweet spot out of all of them. It seems to be just the right amount of flat without having the need of putting any tape on. Remember, all these drums have no tape. And the 18-inch, which I believe is his number one seller on the bundle. This is the second new color. And I think out of the new colors, this one is probably the more popular. I think should be the more popular is this beautiful blue, Cape Cod blue. The 18-inch and the 16-inch seem to be the best diameters for the type of tuning ring he's using. It seems like there's just enough flap in the skin to make things crisp and overtone. These drums have the characteristic of having a lot of mid-range and a lot of high-end. Not the highest in sustain, but in open tones have a lot of sustain. We're talking Seamus O'Kane sort of sustain. We're talking Metloff drum sort of sustain. dowel. Very easy to control tones on this one. For an 18-inch, unlike what I find a lot with a lot of drums like the Walton's 18 inches drums, is that you get a lot more control in the mid-range tones, and you can get really clear, crisp, and uncompromising top sound. What you don't quite get, though, is the extra throat of the bottom end. That could be because it's a 4-inch frame, 4.5 inch frame. It could also be that as you increase the diameter of the drum, you're not pushing the same amount of concentration of air as a column at the back of the drum. So what it ends up getting is a flexible sort of sound. And I'm going to go back again to about where I think these drums fit. Bridget Drums' design, I'm sorry I'm holding it up here. The drum design seems for sound to fit somewhere between how do I put it? A Belgarth and a McNeela drum. And Waltons. Somewhere in between those three, these have a skin sort of quality to that. There's something about it that's sort of, it's a crossover. And I want to make it very, very clear that these drums don't sound cheap. These are not cheap drums. These are, $300 plus, very good quality, very well built. I want to show you something. I'm going to use the 14-inch for this. I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing a little bit of light here. There we go. These are powder coat, and they're 6061, I believe, aircraft aluminum. There is no rusting. These are incredibly tough. They're very well mounted. And if anything needed to be interchanged, it's relatively simple to do so. The bearing edge, which I haven't been able to yet determine, but you can see, come on, there we go, focus. It's very narrow to the skin. And the tuning ring, look at that. That is sanded right down. So even though you know it's a laminate, it is completely and absolutely plumb. And one of the reasons why I'm pointing that up is that these drums are lightweight. They're very lightweight. And if you're someone who bases the quality of something based on the heaviness of it, so if you're someone who's played a lot of Belgarth or Seamus O'Kane drums, these are going to feel cheap when you pick them up. But they're not. They are laminates. And from anyone out there who's played like Finnegan Hill drums, you know those drums are a little bit lighter too. They're all high quality laminate. They are also, I'm sorry I keep turning the camera, they are also pressed and plumbed very beautifully. No exotic woods are actually used on these. All the skins are local sourced. All the skins come from renewable resources. All the wood is sustainable, and all the parts are industrial grade. So unlike a lot of drums from, say, Walton's, which is probably the really big one, I'd say the biggest competition for this right now is the Walton's T series. Unlike the Walton's drums, which do have exposed steel, these don't. Sound characteristic qualities are going to be a hybrid of different sounds, because I believe these drums were developed very much with an independent philosophy, because they don't, the actual bearing edge and how the skin chamfers in is not as severe as many other modern sort of style drums, but these drums do have a modern feel, but they don't have a completely modern sound. They're also not completely that 1970s sound. So there is something here. So how to describe these drums? I haven't quite played anything quite like this. They're in competition money-wise with Waltons and Neela and Roosbeck and Bignolls and whatnot. They're all there. So what kind of drummer would like to buy these? Well, keep in mind that the sound on these are very flexible. If you're a person who likes world drumming, someone who likes a very flexible drum that can be used in African music, Japanese music, that covers a really broad appeal. Sorry for the wind. It's kind of blowing across the mic. If you're someone who's looking for a flexible instrument, so say you're a percussionist, a general percussionist, session percussionist, and you need a Bodhran, you really, really should look at these, because it suits a very flexible world sort of sound. As far as capturing a very Irish, Scottish sort of sound, maybe more of the Scots. Like if you like the sound of the chorus, you definitely want a 20-inch from this. I would say ask Bridget Drums to make a 20 by 6-inch, something like that, or a double skin. But if you're someone who's looking for that very pop, like right now it's very popular, more of the modern, smaller body, taped head sort of thing, you may want to ask Bridget Drums about that. But that sound that seems to be very, very predominant isn't quite what you're going to find here. Those drums really emphasize the low and mid-range. These drums seem to emphasize generally the mid-range and the high range. So if I were to draw a head, you get a fairly good amount of bass. And I'm going to say it's the 18 and 16 inch. Then when you get to the mid-range, these drums really explode. That's where they're strongest. That mid-range allows you to punch through session playing. The downside, though, is that you got to be careful of how loud you're playing. So until these skins get worked in, they're still going to be a little difficult to play. That's going to be true with most drums. Excuse me. And then the last thing is that if you're miking or recording these drums, you may want to mic more for the bass and mic a little less of the mid-range. But if you want to get it as true as possible, I would actually suggest miking these drums the way that you would mic an acoustic guitar during live playing and put it through the PA system. Because these drums don't have that compressed sound that you get from, say, Meinl or from, say, Hedwig Shack or whatnot. And these drums are not in competition with Hedwig Shack, in my opinion. I could argue that the Hedwig Shack Coraline series is in competition with this. No, and for two reasons. Number one being the sound is too far different removed from the Hedwig Shack models. And number two, the price difference. The Hedwig Shack models are fairly more expensive, but there's added wood and materials that are put into it which allow for a more expensive price tag, and rightfully so. So, how to put it, like if you're a Bodhran player, first and foremost, this would be a really, really good drum set. If you're someone living in the United States or Canada and you're looking for a drum that is going to be your first drum, skip the non-tunables. Skip the lower end stuff. Get something like this. That's going to be true with most makers out there. McNeela drums are very popular and very good as well. But, wind. But you don't want to buy cheap as a learner's drum. These are excellent learner's drums. For intermediate and higher players, once you beat these skins in, they're actually going to be more creamy and more bassy. The sizes that I would generally recommend for the most flexible player is the 16 and the 18 inch. The 20 inch is really a product of if you like to do percussive overtone playing. And if you're a fingerstyle player like me a little bit, pick one up. They're actually excellent frame drums. And unlike the other frame drums, tuning these are easier. So the downside, though, so I'm going to go quickly over pros and cons, and then that'll be it. Pros of these drums: very well made, very easy to manipulate, interesting designs. I mean, take a look at that. I don't know any drum maker that does something quite like that. And there are lots of colors to pick from. The hardware is very good. The hardware on these drums are very, very good. These things were meant to stand up to Canadian weather. And we get a lot of variance in weather. There is no weak spots on these drums for climate getting in and damaging them. I want to make that absolutely clear, because everything that's metal is powder coated, and everything that's wood is beautifully laminated. The skins you can play them right out of the box. They are going to have the usual 3 to 4 month break-in time for these types of goat skin. After 1 year, they're going to be at their peak. I would, however, wonder that, like Waltons and a lot of drums of similar price range, are the skins going to continue to get better and better and better over the years? My old Walton's drum pretty much has reached its peak, and that's why I sold it. I didn't play it anymore. So after about 3 or 4 years, that skin wasn't getting any better. So I think these will get better. These will hang around and probably reach their full out break-in of about 5 to 10 years. After that, it's gravy. For most players, 1 year is about all it's going to take to knock these skins into basically basically knock it into what they're going to be at their best at. Now, the downsides is more so that they're very, very niche, and maybe too niche. I know that some players not very interested in Canadian makers. I would take a second look at this. They're excellent travel drums. I mean, literally, they perfectly fit. Excuse me. But they are also producing a sound that is somewhere between a Belgarth, a McNeela, and a Waltons. And the benefit of that, the positive side of that, is that that's very unique. That is a very signature sound, and it's clear throughout the entire range. The downside is that it's very unique. It's not going to be for everyone. For Canadian players, this is going to probably sell much, much better, because we don't have the same sort of cultural sound understanding as they do in Ireland and in Europe. Manufacturers in Canada do things very differently. The other downside is apparent. It's a tool-assisted tuning system, which means that you do get an Allen key with these drums. There is a new tuning system, a ratcheting system that's being produced. It's not out yet. Talk to Bridget Drums about it. Bridget Drums is very committed to making tuning designs that actually are fully accessible by someone who could be 8 years old or 80 years old. The new ratcheting system is supposed to make things easier. But a tool-assisted design, that's very 1980s, very early 1990s, and that's very Walton's Pro level. And all of the manufacturers in that line, except for the Walton's T series, are using tool assist. So this fits right in fine. But the T series in Walton's is a finger tuning system. And price-wise, it is right smack dab with these. So if you're shopping around, or if you're trying to budget yourself, some of the pricing of this is going to be very geographically sensitive. Both drums are very good, but the competition is going to be very stiff because these are the drums that people will normally pick up first and will probably hang on to them for the rest of their lives. But they're not going to be something like the TR Head or a Belgarth or something like that. Very, very different sort of demographic of player is going to want to really desire these drums. So can I recommend these? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you are Canadian or American and you want to cut down on your shipping costs, the cost of these with the shipping is on average about 15 to 20% lower than shipping in from Europe. But the trade-off is that I would say the European market makers, so the Hedvig Shack and Metloff and O'Kane and Diarmid O'Kane and whatnot, they've refined it and continued to evolve it. This design has been evolved very well with regards to making it as seamless as possible for what it is. I think the only suggestion I would have in the future is a finger assist, a thumb, like a screw tuning system version of this would be excellent. That would really help. And the number two thing is that the best thing about these drums is the tuning ring. But it is the exact same tuning ring throughout the entire spectrum of drums. I personally would love to see some experimentation in different shapes of tuning ring to take advantage of the different sizes. This is sort of a la the core line drums, which were designed to all generally sound more or less the same. The benefit of that is that it's very predictable to play. The benefit of these drums is that while it uses all the same ingredients, the size of the drum changes the persona of the drum. So if you're like diversity, this is an excellent line to look into. But if you're someone who wants a more modern sound, this is probably not going to be for you. But again, it skirts between being modern contemporary Bodhran and traditional Bodhran with that Canadian twist. So, what do I feel personally about it? Really well done. Solid design. Unique sound. Diverse colors. Well made. And comfortable to play. As a player's drum, it's perfectly good. And again, I go back to saying the Ronan O'Snody sound. You pick up a dowel tipper and you play this, and you will sound very much like Ronan O'Snody. It's not hard. You can do a lot with this. These drums have, by virtue of their design, so much space inside that if you want to develop slide play, you know. And oh, by the way, I never mentioned the crossbars. They're all missing. I removed the crossbars. They're basically a beautiful round wood dowel, natural finish, rubber end stopper so that they don't mark up the drum. Walton's doesn't do that, so shame on you, Waltons. Good for Bridget Drums on that, because they know how to not damage their finish. And it's a single strong powder coat tuning key, same as this stuff. But the downside is that it's a different Allen key to these. But really, that's just a minor headache. These drums are so light that you could just pick them up and play them standing up without the crossbar. But if you're someone who likes to use the crossbar, there's no problem. I tried it out last night, there's no issue. Final thoughts. If you're someone who likes to play a diverse set of drumming, you gotta check out Bridget Drums. 2 big reasons. Number 1, very unique sound. This is a world Bodhran sound, I would call it that. Number 2, the build quality is excellent, as well as the pricing. You are getting a diverse range of sounds within basically the Taco Bell approach, which is same ingredients, different formats, but yet you're getting different results. You know, my advice is, if you're looking to buy a Bridget drum, is talk to Russell, talk to Bridget Drums, get as much information about the drum itself. This is true with any maker, but make sure you contact and get as much info as you can, because these are very unique sounding drums. You know, if you're looking for something that's not contemporary, this will do you. And again, very good general design for hand playing. So this drum might even replace some of your lesser quality hand frame drums. And unlike the hand frame drums, these are much easier to tune. So this has been the complete line review of Bridget Drums. Very good, but very unique. So you definitely want to talk to Bridget Drums about it. I hope this video helps capture the sound variances of these drums. Again, I'm doing this outside because I wanted to play loudly, because I can't do it at home and my neighbor will kill me. And that these drums are loud. These are very loud, on-point drums. Subtle playing is going to come out as the skins age. But right out of the bat, you're going to have some issues controlling the subtlety of the volume and still retaining the sound. So you're going to have to experiment with that. That's going to be true with Waltons, same problem with Waltons. And I wouldn't really call this a problem per se, because that's part of the characteristic sound of this drum, is that you can get beautiful overtones from quiet to full out loud, and you get very good reaction. So that is my review. Bridget Drums in Burks Falls, Ontario, Canada. Talk to Russell. Thanks, folks, and have a good one.